You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome.
They call it muck duck.
Welcome to Jam Rock.
Out in the streets, they call it muck duck.
Muck duck.
That's a little office reference for you animals.
You filthy animals.
It's
the Animaniacs. We know about that. Was you allowed to watch that one?
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah.
Animaniacs was one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. It was a pretty good one. Yeah. I don't remember a ton about it, but I do remember I watched it quite a bit.
Yeah. And it was right on after the Looney Tunes, but they were the babies. What were they? Tiny Toons.
Tiny Toons.
Yeah.
Babies.
I liked that. Memories, man. The 90s. What a time to be alive.
What a time.
If you weren't alive during the 90s, you missed out. Sorry.
You suck.
Yeah, you suck. Yeah, man, you suck. Boys rule, girls drool. My word.
Hot take, right?
Hot take, but that's what we do here.
Sometimes it's gotta be said.
That's what we do here, hot takes. Our job here is solely to tick people off. And we are succeeding.
It feels that way sometimes. It's definitely not our intention, but it definitely feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Hey! Oh, I got myself a mother-loving... Oh, no.
Okay, get my beverage of choice tonight. Diet Mountain Dew.
Couldn't get that lid on.
Not a Mountain Dew Zero.
Hey.
Not a regular Mountain Dew.
Nope.
Not a Baja Blast. Gray Label Diet Mountain Dew.
Gotta have that gray label.
The GOAT.
It is pretty good. I go back and forth on whether I think it's better than the Mountain Dew Zero or not.
So, I think that the Mountain Dew Zero actually tastes closer to regular Mountain Dew than a Diet Mountain Dew does.
Yes.
But I like Diet Mountain Dew better. I like Diet Mountain Dew better than I like a regular Mountain Dew.
Well, that's true for me, for sure.
So that's why I also like it better than a Mountain Dew Zero, because they taste more like a regular Mountain Dew.
I guess.
It's probably just because I've been drinking this since I was in high school, and it's just it's the taste that my palate has accustomed to.
Probably so. I have myself an Ultra Fiesta Mango Monster Energy drink.
Fiesta. There's just something about the word fiesta that just puts a smile right on a man's face.
It's got 0 sugars and got one single sugar. It's got L-carnitine, taurine. I don't know what any of that is, but it's got it.
It can only be good.
I mean, it could actually be really bad, but you know what? But it is delicious. It's only 10 calories, and it's a fiesta in my mouth hole.
There we go.
So,
I mean, what else can you do? Really? What could you want out of a drink?
nothing.
A beverage.
Nothing else.
It checks all the boxes.
Nothing else will do.
You know, I drank that mango liquid death yesterday, and the first thing I thought was, man, Sean would freaking love this drink. And then I messaged you, and you just kicked me right in the crotch.
Mango chainsaw, is that what it's called?
Yeah, mango chainsaw. It's in a gold can. Looks awesome. It looks like the design on it looks like a metal T-shirt, like a band T-shirt.
I can't remember. I may have tried that one before. I don't remember. I'm thinking I may have gotten that one at a Five Below before.
I'm a seltzer guy. Like, I like the LaCroix and the Liquid Deaths and all that kind of stuff.
Every time that I have like a LaCroix, any kind of like water like that, essenced water or whatever, it literally is like someone just put it tastes to me like someone put toilet water in there, and then like a little invisible fairy just like sprays like a little hint of mango around your nose hole as you're drinking it. It's like it doesn't even taste like it, but there's like some sort of like essence to it.
I'm worried about you. Like, I feel like you need to go to a doctor about that.
It doesn't. They taste god awful. LaCroix is like the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth.
Well, LaCroix are cheap. I mean, like
Yeah, they're just.
it's
they're just so
probably
bad.
not the standard that you want to like. Okay, they're the cheap ones.
Hint. Those are the only ones that I've ever had. The Hint. Those are the only like essenced waters or whatever flavored waters like that I've had that I thought was like pretty good.
Well, that's a shame.
And I've only had one of those. It was like a. It may have been a mango something also, or pineapple, coconut, or something.
You put the lime in the coconut and put them both together. Something like that.
Mix it all up.
Yeah, something. Whatever, Trevor.
I love lime and coconut. I love all things tropical.
Yeah.
That's just who I am, man. You know what? Is it weird if I identify as a Pacific Islander?
It's kind of weird because knowing what I know about you, I would say that your DNA contains approximately 0% Pacific Islander.
But why can't I identify, though, as a Pacific Islander?
I mean, I guess you can, but it just seems odd.
Like I'm living in some sort of fantasy land?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can do whatever. You can, you know what? I will respect your choices. I will call you by whatever your preferred pronouns are. I will call you by whatever preferred race you want to identify as.
I feel like I need to learn a Haka.
I mean, if you're going to identify as a Pacific Islander, then you need to do it right.
Right.
That's the only stipulations to your identifications is you got to do it right.
Yeah. I need to get the tattoos. I need to go all out.
They do have cool tattoos.
I need to start stocking up on Spam.
My name Sutherland is Scottish, so that's what I go with.
Listen, I'm fully aware that I'm just a pasty Irishman, but I'm telling you, I feel Pacific Islander.
Hey, you know, Ireland has beaches too. Like, it is an island.
Right.
You're aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm just saying, like, if the whole thing is like beach and an ocean, and Ireland has that too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Ireland's got oceans and beaches and whatnot, but come on.
Okay.
But, you know, come on.
They do lack a little bit of the sunshine.
Come on.
They lack the sunshine. You're right.
It's not the same as Fiji, sir.
I wouldn't know. I've never been to Fiji. Nor have I ever been to Ireland, unfortunately.
No, me either. But I would like to go to both.
I would too, actually. I'd really like to go to Sutherland, Scotland. Check that out. It looks really green.
Yeah. I need to do like that 23andMe and figure out, who am I?
Who am I? I did. Well, mine's Ancestry.com.
Oh, yeah.
But I did the DNA through that. But my ethnicity is exactly what you would think. It's like heavy on the Scottish,
so white.
Scottish, English, Irish, and Norwegian. Like, it's all
Right.
in that area.
I know.
And I am 1% Nigerian.
Ooh,
Or maybe it was 0.1%.
you're so exotic.
Yeah. Actually, since I've done my family tree and I know the ethnicities of it, as much as I am proud of that heritage, I'm not probably proud that it's within me because of how it got there.
You're like Andy Bernard.
Yeah, I mean, if you understand what I'm saying, like, I'm from the South
Yeah.
and my ethnicity is completely white except for like that 1%. So like it probably didn't get in there in a good manner. And so
Right.
I'm not really proud of that.
Right, like Andy was related to Michelle Obama.
Right. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Same.
Yikes. All right, well, I do have quite a bit of Cherokee. my
I'm an Indian
ancestry.
outlaw, half Cherokee and Choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa. Oh.
I don't know the words that you're saying to me right
That's
now.
Tim McGraw, buddy.
That explains why I don't know the words coming out of your mouth.
My word.
Never been a country guy.
That's 90s country, too, going right back to the 90s. This is our retro episode. We're flashing everything back to the 90s and going right along with the 90s and our topic. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns on heaven and earth and wisdom, power.
Just getting all the words wrong.
That's how I do. I just sing whatever's on the heart.
Our God is an awesome God.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, there was a Petra song that they made like a worship album in the 90s.
I remember Petra.
Oh. You came from heaven to earth to show the way.
I remember some Petra.
Man, they did it for a long time, man. They might still be doing it. I don't know.
Probably. Striper. They're probably still doing it.
Possibly.
You remember them?
I do remember
To
Striper.
hell with the devil.
Yeah, that was one if you were...
That's edgy,
Edgy.
right? Yeah.
If you were one of those...
I can't even without this seeing that meme. The meme that the guy says, well, I got kicked out of church for saying F the devil. I thought we hated that mother.
I mean, we do, right?
It's my favorite. I love it.
It is hilarious. You know?
It just made me think. Remember that video? Somebody had sent it to us where the people were like, when I was a kid, and this was the only acceptable way to use the bird, and they were just flipping off the ground like they were flipping off the devil in different ways of flipping the bird.
Yeah. It's, if you're going to flip somebody off, it has to be the devil.
Yeah.
And it has to be pointed at the ground because that's where he lives.
Obviously. Everybody knows that.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm having a good old time.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't even talk about the topic.
Maybe. We're actually just putting out episode after episode after episode. Now, of course, we're still just releasing one at a time, but we know that busy season's coming up, right? So football season's
Right.
coming up, vacation season. We're both going to Honduras on this mission trip. So, like, we know it's going to be hard to fit some recording sessions in. So while we have time, we're trying to just do 2 a week. And right now, I mean, this probably won't even get released until sometime in July. Like, we're ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
But man, we've been putting out episodes.
I think well, maybe not. I don't want to say that and be proved an idiot.
I think that we have 2 in the bank, and this will be 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I was trying to figure out if I was thinking that this one is going to drop very close to the time that we're actually leaving Or-
this might be.
Honduras.
By the time you're listening to this, we're going to be flying somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico.
Probably.
Maybe.
I guess.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Possibly.
Oi.
I did buy me some drawers, some pants, some breeches.
Because you just don't own any pants, huh?
Well, the ones that I do, the ones I have are not made for being outside doing manual labor.
Right.
And, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm not a blue collar guy. Okay. I work in an office. I'm an office man. So I don't just have like work clothes, quote unquote. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So if I'm going to be outside working and I need pants, the ones that I have now is going to make my downstairs situation a sweaty mess.
Right.
And we wanted to avoid that.
Of course.
So I got some breathable drawers, some breeches,
Nice.
some pants,
Pantalos.
pantalones. No mas pantalones.
Yeah, I had to go and get me some as well. I went and bought me some that are nice and stretchy, comfortable, breathable, moisture managing.
Moisture management. That's what that's what the sticker said, man. I had to get some moisture management. The thing is about me and pants, I'm shaped so weird because
Yep.
I mean, I'm not trying to act like I got a small waist. Anybody that knows me knows I don't have a small waist, or I'm a big guy. I weigh about 285 pounds right now. But my legs have always been big, like huge, like out of proportion with the rest of my body. So especially nowadays when like the more slim fit or whatever is like the style, it's very hard for me to find pants that are comfortable because if they fit in the waist, they're really, really tight around my thighs. But if I get them the right size for my thighs, they're way too big in the waist. It's a real struggle, man. When we were kids, it wasn't that big a deal because the thing was baggy pants.
Yeah.
But kids these days messing everything up for us. They're dang skinny jeans.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had to go and buy me some as well. You know what? I'm a little nervous about it.
Really?
I'm a little nervous about the trip.
You're nervous about pants?
No, not about the pants.
Nervous about the trip?
Nervous about the trip.
The only thing nervous I am about the trip is the plane ride, and I'm not somebody that's super afraid of flying. I'm extremely scared of heights. Like, that's my number one fear is heights. But it's a little bit different in a plane. I'm not terrified, but I'm also not comfortable. Like, I don't know how to explain that feeling of like always kind of being like right on the edge of being nervous. You know, like I'm not having anxiety, but I'm like right up on the edge of the anxiety. Like as soon as we hit some turbulence, I'm going to go over that ledge and have anxiety. Like,
All right.
So it's just that the plane ride makes me a little bit nervous. The trip itself, I'm cool with.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the plane ride at all. What I'm just like, the whole thing is just sort of out of my comfort zone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's good to push yourself like outside of your comfort zone, but like, you know, this is something I've actually thought about doing, even if I just did something on my own, because I don't know how much you would be able to add to or say about the topic, but like, for me, being pretty introverted,
Yeah.
like this going and even just the thought of like going and hanging out with people and talking to people on this mission trip makes me nervous. So
That's interesting. Yeah, I know of, you know, like that's a thing. I've heard people talk about that before. I've just never. I also kind of consider myself introverted, but not in that way, I guess. Like, I'm the kind of person that, like, I don't have any kind of anxiety about interacting with people or being in social situations, but I'm also not the kind of person that's going to go and engage in something like that. Like, if I'm just, you know, like in this situation, we're going to be with people, like, I'm comfortable in that situation. But also, like, if I see somebody that I even know out in public, usually they're the ones that have to say something to me before I say something to them, because it's just not like it's not because I'm a jerk. I'm introverted in that way, you know, like.
yeah, I'm both of those things.
But at least you know what I'm talking about, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, like I'm not a jerk, but I'm just not comfortable, like, engaging the conversation. But if you engage me, then we can have the conversation. But and I'm also terrible about, like, texting people that I haven't talked to in a long time or things like that. Like, just, I don't know, it's not me.
Yeah, so that makes me a little bit nervous about the trip, and then
Yeah.
you know the days that we're doing like the concrete work and stuff like that. Like I just, you know, I'm not just never done anything like that before, so I'm not really sure what role I'm gonna play and
Right.
you know how much help I'm going to be and things like that. You know, so I signed up to do something like an evangelism and discipleship
Yeah, like a workshop kind of thing.
workshop, and I'm supposed to be helping with that, and which is I'm sure is going to require me to speak in front of a group of people that I don't know.
Right.
So like that was a choice that I
Not
made.
only do you not know, but you don't even speak their language.
yeah. So like
Unless somehow in the conversation you needing cheese comes up, you're not going to be able to speak the language.
if I need to use the word cheese, I've got that.
Yeah, I think when you're doing that, I signed up to, like, play with kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to take them outside and play soccer or something.
And see, both of those things sounded equally like nerve-wracking to me. So I was like, well, I'll just do the discipleship thing, I guess.
That one sounded way more nerve-wracking to me. The playing with the kids, that's a piece of cake. That's like literally my life now. So,
Well, yeah. And I mean, it's not that like I don't like kids or anything. I'm just, I don't know. I'm just weird like that. Like, this is my personality. You know?
why are you the way that you are?
I don't know. I've always kind of been like that. Always kind of been like, just like sort of socially awkward.
Yeah.
You know.
It's kind of cool to sometimes as I get older, I notice it more where I kind of not making a judgment necessarily, but kind of like an inventory about who I am, like, you know, like what you're talking about, like, you know, that about yourself, and then just try to think through like, well, why am I the way that I am? What makes me like this? And just think through that, and like, you know, how your upbringing and how much of it is genetic or DNA or, you know, things like that factor into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I've thought about a lot of that a lot. I'm just not going to share a lot of it right here and now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Well, actually, it's funny enough because I guess the reason why that was fresh on my mind is because I was thinking about today's topic for this episode from the lens of my past and the way that I was brought up, raised. I think does factor into the way that maybe the way that I see the topic for today, which the topic is praise and worship.
Let's get that out.
I hate that I keep saying the topic as if it's some kind of mystery, like praise and worship. So,
well, I mean, it's probably going to be in the title.
Yeah.
So people are going to know. But anyway.
So the topic's praise and worship, but you know, like my relationship with worship in a church setting, worship service or whatever, when I try to think about why I am the way that I am, I do think that the way I was raised factors into it. Now, I don't think it's everything, because there are other people that come from the same backgrounds who are different than me, but I do think it has to factor in some.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, same here. I mean, I definitely think that, well, I don't know. I guess I do. Yeah. I mean, I guess I do really view it differently now than I did as a kid.
Right.
You know.
Would it make sense? I think it would be weird for you to be in a similar situation with worship and, you know, praise and worship in a church setting as I am, just because of your background, right? Like you were on the worship team, your entire family is musically inclined. Right. Like it's the way you were born and raised, you know, like, so, whereas I have no musicians in my family. You know, I come from a background, which everybody know, you know, we've talked about our background. The first 21 years of my life, I was Southern Baptist, which aren't really known for their enthusiastic worship services. You know, and so, and I've even mentioned before in one of the episodes about how, like, for a time being, when I was in the Southern Baptist church that I went to, there was this lady that would come and would dare to raise her hands in the worship services, and everybody used to look at her like she was some kind of weird outcast. Like, so knowing all of that, like,
can you believe Sister Margaret raising her hands? How dare she?
I was so confused when I first, because I'd never seen that before. I was like,
what is she reaching for?
Yeah, what is that? Why do people do that? Which is funny enough, is all these years later, I still have that question. But I mean, so that probably, it makes sense that would factor into the struggle. I hate to use the word struggle, but why I wrestle so much with the worship service.
Wrestle.
I'm a big wrestling guy, you know. I'm big into what you gonna do, brother?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we've like you said, we've kind of went through our backgrounds before, but you know, to me, it was weird if you didn't raise your hands. To me, it was weird if you were sitting back in your pew just kind of minding your own business. That was kind of weird.
So you're calling me weird?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like the way that I was raised in the church, and you know, it was, you know, Pentecostal, quote unquote holiness, but also, most of my life we were Christ Gospel, which is kind of its own thing, even, and even like even the demonstrations of the Spirit and the different ways in which worship or spiritual warfare and things like that, like all of that was even different to some extent in Christ's Gospel than it was for other
Right.
Pentecostal churches,
Right.
So, yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff in my background that kind of, colors the way that I view worship and stuff today, for sure.
Right. It's just so much to factor in, especially when you consider, because what you were just saying about like people, it seeming weird if somebody's not up and being involved up at the front of the church, being involved in the worship service with like demonstrations of the spirits or dancing or whatever, like, because we're not Christ Gospel anymore, not the church that we attend. And I feel like that has changed, right? Like it's no longer weird for you to do your own thing. Like, that's one of the things I actually love about that church is that everybody feels free to do whatever they are comfortable doing.
Right.
But the bad thing is like I know this is all just me and it's just in my head, but like there's still a part of me that feels, because I'm not comfortable. I've never been comfortable doing that kind of stuff. Like I used to do it because I felt like everybody was looking at me as if I was a weirdo if I didn't. But like, so I've made myself do things in the past, but like, there are times when I still catch myself being self-conscious of that, right? Like when people sometimes will say like, everybody come up front or whatever. And like, I feel that rise up in me that just like, I'm not comfortable doing that. But if I don't, I feel like everybody's going to be like, well, what's his problem? You know what I mean? Like it's something that I wrestle with and struggle with because I want to be real. Like I'm the kind of person that I want to be real. Like I don't want to I'm not going to do something just to do it. I've done that before in the past. That's not I've grown past that. I'm not going to do something just to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to feel like the weirdo either, like it's a constant battle for me.
Yeah. I don't guess I have that struggle now as much. I did for sure I struggled with, again, because, all this stuff plays into it. Like my personality, am I more introverted? Like, like I've always tended to care way too much about what people thought about me.
Right.
So like, I would feel weird, like people were looking at me if I went up front and did, because that's what you do. Like in our church, in like a Pentecostal church, that's what you do. You shake and you dance and you scream and shout and
play with snakes and
roll around. Well,
drink cyanide and
we weren't. We were not the snake handling folks.
I know. I'm kidding. Actually, that's the line right there. I love being in a church where people are free to do whatever they feel like doing, and I'm free to do what I want to do. But as soon as you bring out a snake, I'm leaving. Like that's the line that's too far for me.
Yeah. My grandparents actually attended a snake handling church in West Virginia before they came here.
Nice.
I don't think that it was like an all the time thing. I think they like visited once or something. But anyway, cool story.
That is cool.
In the mountains of West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Anyway, yeah. So for me, like, I kind of the same thing. Like, I did things that like I didn't really know. Like I was doing them, I guess, kind of because everyone else was doing them. But even when I did it, like I would feel uncomfortable. Like a lot. I mean, and maybe I'm, it's. Sometimes I don't know whether I'm misremembering things or not.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
like your conception of those past events now, looking back on them, may not be the truth of what it was in the moment.
Yep.
But my recollection of it was just always kind of feeling uncomfortable in praise and worship, like even though I would go up front and I would participate, a lot of times I didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
And I mean, there was certain things that I did feel comfortable doing, and certain things that made sense to me at the time that I did do as a demonstration, you know.
Right.
But most of that was more spiritual warfare focused, more so than like actual praise
Right.
and worship.
Yeah. I think for me, like what you're talking about, going up and participating, and for me, it got to where it wasn't necessarily uncomfortable. Was I rationalized it in my mind as almost like a maybe you've seen before, like scream therapy or something like
Oh yeah.
you know, like where you have this buildup of emotion within, and like it just needs to be released, and so you like yell it out or scream it out, or like, and that's an actual like kind of that people do retreats for stuff like that. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
that's kind of how I rationalize that kind of stuff, and that's how I got comfortable with it. Is like I would allow myself to have those emotions build up within me until finally it was like it just needs to and then you would have to kind of get out of your own way, get out of your comfort zone to allow yourself to get to that point to just release it. But once you do release it, it's like now it's going. You know what I mean? Like just let it release it all, which is probably different than how most people, like, I don't know, because it's not an overly spiritual way to look at that, right? That's very psychological, maybe even humanistic, like in a way. And that's not to say it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's how I rationalized it with me. Like, I never really understood a lot of this. I still don't even, like, we use the word spirit all the time, and what does that even mean? You know, like, but I'm not saying that it is or isn't the move of the spirit or whatever. I'm just saying that's how I rationalized it with me, was as if it was just, I acknowledged it's just my emotions, and I'm just allowing those to.
Yeah. I guess maybe the difference for us might be like in like why those emotions are there, where they're coming from. You know, because just to say that this is happening because I'm having this emotional response isn't to say for me isn't to say that emotional response isn't a response to the moving of the spirit.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I'm not. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that either. I'm just saying
that's how I kind of view it, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't have any disagreement with it, really. It's just in my mind at the time. That's how I rationalized it. Was, you know, I mean, I've said it on here a million times, and anybody that's listened to us for any amount of time knows, like, I'm a pretty skeptical person, and like things have to logically make sense for me, or it's hard for me to, like, you know, so I have to try to rationalize things in a way that my finite mind can understand.
Right.
But so you specifically said, let's just, I don't know, we don't have an outline for this. So you specifically said, when we were talking about this topic, we said initially worship, and then you wanted to specifically make sure that we called it praise and worship. Why? Why is that?
Because I do think that there's a difference between the two. Like, I think that worship encompasses not just what you do. I think it's, well, I keep wanting to say more than praise, but I don't know that that's the right word to use.
Because when you say more, people sometimes get in mind like that it's somehow better or ahead of.
Yeah, and that's not what I mean, but I just mean to say that I think it encompasses more.
Yeah, maybe like in this scenario that the praise is the pie and the worship is a slice, perhaps.
Or
cake, if you will.
Possibly.
Possibly.
But yeah, like, I think because, like, there's like, I think it's Romans 12 that says that present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable. Actually, let me look that one up so I can get the exact quote.
Do it to
Correcto.
Do it to it, bruh.
Correcto.
Really, for me, it's not something that I've spent a whole heck of a lot of time contemplating. You know, praise and worship. You know, what's the difference? How are they different? The same? I don't know. It's never it's not something I've spent a whole heck of a lot of time on, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, so like it's Romans 12, 1 through 2 is what I was thinking of. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God,
Mm-hmm.
to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And so, like, I think that encompasses a lot more than just setting aside a time to give honor and gratitude and thanks and praise to God for who God is. I think that to lay yourself down, to recognize God's mercies, and then lay your life down as a living sacrifice, as He did, out of His mercy for all of us. Like, to lay your life down as a living sacrifice, that's your spiritual worship. Like, that means that anytime that you're imitating that agape love, that's worship.
Yeah.
Self-sacrificial love. Like, anytime that you present yourself as a sacrifice, like, sacrifice your time, sacrifice your energy, sacrifice your, give your giving and monetary, and like, if you're whatever it is,
Right.
anytime you're sacrificing yourself for the good of someone else, I think that encompasses part of what worship is,
Right. Yeah, I don't have any disagreements with that. I mean, that's the way, to me, it makes sense, is, like, worship being presenting you, like, as you basically said it, just imitating that agape love, like, loving your neighbors yourself, and, in your regular, everyday, day-to-day walk, like, your day-to-day life. To me, that is what I would best, I guess, say worship is to me.
Yeah, and I guess that, like, Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, I think that, like, they are intertwined,
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like, because what it said here is because of the mercies of God.
Right.
Like, and I think that, like, anytime that we recognize God's goodness, that's an opportunity. Any fresh revelation we have of God's goodness, of His love, of His mercy, His compassion, all the things, His goodness, that should bring praise out of us. So I think that, like, worship stems from praise. Like, it's only in the recognition of His sacrifice and His giving of Himself,
Yeah.
for the other, that I guess maybe empowers us to go and do the same,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I was just trying to think through what you were saying. Just processing it. Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was like if you weren't sure if you agreed with me or.
No, I was trying to listen to you and process it, and also my mind, like, sparks are going off on things that you're saying, and so I want to, like, I'm trying to make a mental note of, like, remember that so that we can talk about that in a little. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So my mind is going a million different directions right now.
Well, the people can't see because we're not doing video,
Right.
but, like, I was just, like, watching your face, and I was like, what is he thinking right now as I'm saying this? But anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any kind of disagreement with that. I think where things get weird for me is that, at least it seems like, from the traditions that we're familiar with at least, but probably I feel safe to say the majority of American Christianity, like, we just equate praise and worship with music and this quote-unquote worship service, which can be, I guess, part of what you're saying, but the way that you described it, it doesn't have to be a part of it. And I think
Right, yeah.
that's always that's where my mind, that's probably why you were looking at my face being like, what's going on? Because I agree with what you're saying. The problem and the struggle with me is that it doesn't manifest itself in me wanting to sing a song, or, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, that process seems weird to me. It's especially, and Yeah, I tried to dive into this a little bit and try to think like, why is that for me? And I think there's a lot of different things that factor into it. We've already talked about my past, but also like, it's just hard for me with the Jesus. You know, we've already done the Who is Jesus episode, so like I've kind of laid out the way that I view Jesus, and you know, just being like the humble servant that I know. It seems like I don't know that I feel comfortable that he would even, like, if he was standing in the room with me, which is even weird to say because he resides within me, which is another layer to the awkwardness of it. But, like, I don't know that he would even want me singing a song of praise to him. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, because he's humble and meek, it just seems like the Jesus that I know, that seems completely weird to me. I don't know. I'm trying to express what I'm thinking, but it's hard to put into words what I'm trying to say, really. But I'm just saying, like, the conception that I have of Jesus, the Jesus that I know was humble, and he was more focused on, like, saving, you know, sozo, making other people whole, and us as his disciples doing those things too. So it seems to me like the idea of having, like, a worship service where we're going to sing songs of praise to this guy, like, in my mind, he's like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Why are we not taking this time to go feed the hungry or whatever? Which I know brings up another verse, right? It's the verse of the alabaster box, and that's the Judas. It was like, well, we could be using this to sell to the,
Yeah.
you know, and feed the poor. So, I mean, there's so many different layers to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, so one way I've kind of thought about that is like, you know, if you think about God as Father, and Trinity, actually, so like thinking about like your dad loves to serve, right? Like I know that, like, it seems to me like my dad just gets a kick out of helping me do stuff.
Yeah.
Like he loves to help me, especially as I've gotten older and I need him less and less. I think he's like, a lot of times he's longing for something to help me with. Like he wants to serve me, right, in that way, right? So it's not that God isn't the humble servant that Jesus displayed, but I also know that even though Dad doesn't require it, he would like a thank you.
But that doesn't mean that you have to sing him a song.
Oh no, but you know what I mean.
That's the point I'm making, though.
But that's what I think that praise is for me. It's like just a displaying of like gratitude and thanksgiving, you know, for who God is and how good He is.
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
yeah, that's a valid point. It's also weird for me, though, too, from that perspective, because, and I've mentioned this to you before, like in a worship service setting, it seems like we're worshiping an other, right? Like we say it all the time that we know God's not the old man sitting up in the clouds who's separate from us, but he's in this room. He's not just in the room, but he's within me. Like, God is everything. He's like... But yet, like, when we participate in, like, a worship service, it's almost like we're saying he's over there and we're singing him a song, and it's not, like... You know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's something else that I struggle with and where my mind goes when I try to, like, participate, so to speak, in a worship service. It's like... I don't know. It's the weirdness of, like, I'm worshiping like something separate from me, but it's not separate from me. It's within me. Like, it's no longer I that live, but Christ, which lives in me. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? So it's
right.
It's a weird distinction of where do I end and God is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but also in saying that, like, it is Christ that lives in me, but over and over again in the Gospels, Christ is praying to the Father. He's praising the Father. He gives thanks to the Father.
Right.
You know, in the Gospels, you know, Jesus is doing that, and
right.
And again, kind of like what I said, I mentioned the Trinity a minute ago. Like, I think that is evidence of that too. Like, you have the Father, agape, self-sacrificing for the Son, and the Son self-sacrificing for the Father, and the Spirit self-sacrificing. It's like this constant flow of self-sacrificial love and serving
Right.
and praising and thanking, and like this constant flow of love between the three persons of the Trinity. And we're meant to enter into that and join in that, and it never ends. Like that circle just keeps broadening and deepening and widening, right? Because Paul said, "I pray that you would know the height, the depth,
Right.
Of God's love, but you're never going to find the end of it." It's like it just keeps expanding every time you think. I think that's what, like in the book of Revelation, when it talks about the people falling down in worship, and then just like continually just falling down and falling down and falling down and continuing to worship and praise. I think that's what that is. I think it's every time that, by the time you get up and fix your gaze again on this triune God of self-sacrificing love, it's like there's just more there. There's a fresh revelation that circle has deepened and widened to where it's, you can't help but fall down and just awestruck by this fresh revelation of goodness and love and mercy and compassion that's there. Like I think that's part of what we are doing whenever we praise and worship. It's just constantly receiving fresh revelation of his goodness, or reminders of his goodness. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I went off on a little tangent there.
No, it's good. I just want to make sure to be clear at this point that I'm not poo-pooing on worship service. Well, I know that you know that, but I want to make sure that the listeners understand that, because I've already said I enjoy I choose to go to the church I go to. One of the reasons is because I do like that everyone is free to worship, quote unquote, or praise, whatever, in whatever manner suits them and however they. So I say all that to say, these things that I'm saying, I'm not saying to poo-poo on the idea of a worship service, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, or I'm actually trying to be vulnerable and trying to espouse some of the questions that I have or the struggles that I have through this. You know what I'm trying to say? So, I'm not trying to I'm certainly not trying to convince anybody that a worship service is a bad idea or whatever. I don't want it to come across in that way. I'm just simply trying to lay out, these are questions that I have. Because worship, particularly as part of a church setting, what does it for me? What really gets me going is a good Sunday school. Or a good, let's dive into stuff. Let's, the logic, the scriptures, that kind of, scholarship. There's something within me. It's the way I was made, I guess. Something within me that really resounds with me. Some kind of fresh revelation, that we find and uncover and we dive into, that does it for me. I struggle in my personal life with the worship service aspect of participating in church. Always have, probably always will, because of these questions that I have about it, Yeah.
And nothing that I just said, I wasn't trying to downplay any of your questions or anything.
No, I know. Well, that's part of us having this conversation, right? I mean, again, we have different backgrounds with this stuff. So,
yeah.
We really, before we even started recording, said we don't know really how this conversation is going to go, because this is one of those things that, a lot of times when we talk about these topics, we have a good understanding of what we're talking about. It's a topic that we've spent a lot of time on, a lot of hours reading and studying and listening to podcasts and YouTube videos, and there's things that we've really spent a lot of time just praying about and thinking about, meditating on, and we come to the podcast with it this is what I'm going to talk about. I want to make sure I hit this point and this point and this, and this is one for me where I've got questions, thoughts, struggles. I don't have any good answers really, as much as I have questions.
Yeah. Yeah, something that I was thinking about that I kind of hinted at earlier, but never really more fleshed out more, I guess, was how I think that praise and worship are integrated or can be. Like, I don't know that they have to be separate. And what I mean by that is like I think there's certain elements of it that maybe you would feel more comfortable with. Although I don't know, because like what you said earlier about your introvertedness, but because worship, I think, is, involves that self-sacrificing element to it. Like, a lot of what I end up doing a lot of times, whenever I go up front to participate in the praise and the worship,
Right.
what I end up doing a lot of times is praying for people. And sometimes I will get like a quote unquote a word for someone and share that, and but a lot of my time up there is contemplation, contemplating, because like Jesus says in John 4, those that God is spirit, and those that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. And so like the truth of the lyrics and the felt presence of the Spirit in combination with this truth in the lyrics creates in me, praise. But then also, like, that can lead me into quote unquote worship by, going and kind of leaving my own moment here of contemplation and going in and praying for someone in need, So I think that they can be integrated in that
It's funny that your
also.
one thing was prayer, because that's probably the one thing that I have more questions about than if I was to rank my top things and I have questions and struggles with, it's probably prayer first and then worship. So.
Yeah, and we're going to do a whole episode on prayer at some point.
Yeah.
But it is, it's a little trippy. I sent you that thing the other day from George MacDonald.
Yes,
Did you like that?
I did. I've yet to come across anything from George MacDonald I didn't like. So
I know everything that I've read from him is super good.
Shout out Georgie Mac, R.I.P.
R.I.P. for sure. He has been gone a long time.
Had a killer beard though.
He did. Yeah. Huge influence. If you don't know who George MacDonald is, look him up.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has, it's what they call it, unspoken sermons.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the unspoken sermons is called Justice. That's a really good one. He has another one called Light, and that one's really good too. I love that one. But
yeah, I think coming back around to the praise and worship thing, like, I don't have any problem with gratitude, right? And like, but usually the extent of it to me, I guess, is a prayer. Like, I try to. I'm somebody that tries to focus. No, wouldn't even say I do a good job of it, but I try to focus on, gratitude and positivity, because I know that, like, constantly being reminded of how grateful you are factors into, your day and your week and your month and your year and your life. Like,
yeah.
It plays a big part, but I don't know. I guess I don't have any problem with that. And I try to give God acknowledgement for my gratitude every day. But then, like, I don't know, it shouldn't feel like this, probably, I say. Maybe this is me making a judgment against myself, but it always feels forced for me to, like, I've tried to, in some of our conversations past, kind of brought that up to you about how, like, I don't know, maybe it's just different for everybody, like, it doesn't, like, the gratitude that comes up in me, I don't have a problem giving praise. It's just that the manifestation of doing it in song form isn't, like, what's first and foremost on my mind or my heart. You know what I mean? So it always feels forced. It feels, for me, at times, like, I have to really work for it to not feel like inauthentic. Like, the only reason why I'm doing this is because this is what we do at church. You know what I mean? Like, It's hard for me to get past that. Because it's not a natural response for me. It's just not. I don't know. Maybe that's something wrong with me. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess maybe it kind of sounds like you're not doing anything that's that different than what I do when I'm just up front. Like, because, like, when I say that, like, the contemplating the lyrics of the songs, even singing them, like, I do think that there's something to, like, vocalizing it, putting it out. Like, actually saying the words.
Yeah.
I do think that there's something to that, especially when the song is about God's goodness and is, like, really hammering home, like, these attributes of God that make him holy and good and love, mercy, compassion, all those things. Like I think that there is something to verbalizing that I think is
Right.
That I think is important for me. But also, because I think that part of that is an increasing of my own faith, just to verbalize it,
Yeah.
But also, like internally, it is sort of like a prayer, like what you were talking about, like just in giving gratitude for God and His like everything that God is. Like it does a lot of times, just elicit a prayer.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's generally is.
Or just communication, maybe, is a way to put it, more so than prayer.
Yeah.
For me, but.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not to say I've also have had in the past, I have had profound moments in a worship service. You know what I'm saying? But it's hard. It's hard for me to get out of my own way. My head is always running. Like, I mean, how many things have I already brought up just in the short amount of time that we've been?
Yeah.
Like, these are all things that are running through my mind during a worship service. So, like, it's extremely hard to even connect in a pure stream of worship or praise whenever I've got all this noise going on in my brain.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about like the lyrics. Like, I'm also somebody who's constantly like thinking about the lyrics, like, wait a minute, I don't know if I believe that. Or sometimes it's, like,
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, what did they mean when they wrote that? And like, so it's constantly going down those rabbit holes too. It's just hard to get out of my own way.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's true, I think, for all of us, but I think that's why we're there. I think that's part of the reason that we choose to gather together like that, is to try to put all that stuff out of the way for the time being. That's kind of what we're there for. Like, this is a dedicated space that we have all chosen to gather as a family to try to put all of that away for a little bit and to try to set aside whatever doubts or I don't even know. I don't know if I even feel comfortable saying that. But, like, to try to get out of our own way
Right.
for a little bit and just to give Him gratitude.
Which I think that makes sense of why music was kind of chosen as the medium, because music it naturally elicits a emotion within you. Like, it doesn't, even if you're listening to quote unquote secular music, right? Like, if I'm going for a big heavy deadlift, like a 1 rep max on my deadlift or my bench press, like, some kind of big hype up music really helps. Or, like if you're out running and like you're trying to do a 1 mile, like my personal best on a 1 mile, like something upbeat, fast, like, it elicits, that's what music does. And so, and I know that I've heard people on TikTok or whatever, like some within the deconstruction movement have talked about that as how it's manipulating. And I think it can be, but I don't necessarily see it that way. Because I think it's part of what you were just talking about helping me to get out of my own way. Even if it is, the music is written in a way designed to, quote unquote, manipulate my emotions to make me, feel a certain way. But it also does help me to get out of my own way at times. It can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, like you were saying about the lyrics, like that is something that I struggle with sometimes too, depending on the lyrical content. Because, like I said, that one of the things that I do is contemplate on the truth of the lyrics.
Right.
Well, some of the songs at certain times, I'm like, I don't know if that's the truth or not.
Right.
But
I have rewritten songs and just sung my own song. I'll be sometimes I'll be standing in the back singing my own words, but.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I was trying to think, like, I guess I'm just kind of thinking through that whole idea of, like, music and how it does draw some sort of emotional response from you. And, I think we've already talked about, I don't necessarily think that that's, like, bad.
Right.
You know, I think that's. I mean that. I think that God intended all these things for the good. I think God intends everything for the good. Right. So whether, like, any sort of artistic expression, I think, even if it's secular, I think that there are ways in which God can speak to you, even in those moments, speak truths to you. Like we've talked a little bit about, you know, artistic expression and how, like, you know, one of the reasons why I think Jesus spoke in parables so much is because I think that there's a way that artistic expressions, like things that are more, that aren't as, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, I think that those things have a way of sneaking past your intellect a lot of times and reaching something that's deep inside of you.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here with the musical element of worship and praise here, is that I think that I don't think that it's a bad thing at all. I think that it's, in those moments, it's precisely what God's intention for music was the whole time.
Right.
Which is to bring about, you know, to speak truth to us in ways that maybe our heads wouldn't allow for otherwise, and to bring about an emotional response even sometimes,
Right.
but even more so than an emotional response, like to bring out of us praise.
I like the way that you put that, really, about how it's able to kind of sneak past your intellect and just, like, because I've seen that before, right? Like, I mean, me and you have kind of talked about it, but we know, like, we've seen people sing songs and the lyrics were like, I don't know, that person has said things in the past that doesn't really necessarily line up with what they're singing here, but it's like there's something within that knows that, you know, like, that can just, it's able to tap something within.
Yeah.
Even if you like actually sit down, if you were to sit down and like theologically think through it and write out, you'd be like, wait a minute, do I believe that? But something within you was touched. Like, you could feel something, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny how different ones will hit you differently just depending on, like, your situation or what's going on, you know? Like, you could hear a song a million times and it never affects you, but, like, once it's just the right time, it completely changes everything, you know?
Yeah. That actually happened to me recently.
That's why I brought it up, because it literally happened to me Sunday.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we brought it up on air or not. I think I started to and didn't go into detail on one of our previous episodes about, like, one of the songs we sang at this revival that we had recently was God of Revival. And that's one of the songs that, like, you know, we've done it a bunch, but I guess I actually really paid attention for whatever reason. The lyrics hit me harder this time playing through it here in the Baptist church. And I was sitting on the cajon and I was super sweaty, but I was also crying, so, like, you couldn't tell whether it was sweat
sweaty,
or crying.
blubbering mess.
So, but, you know, that song, it says, you know, there's no prison wall he can't break through, no mountain he can't move. All things are possible. There's no broken body he can't raise, no soul that he can't save. All things are possible.
Right.
Do we believe it?
I do.
I do. I do believe it. I believe it. And that's why whenever those words hit me like that, that's why I was a blubbering, sweaty mess trying to play the cone.
Well, what was funny for me is the one that actually, like, had that reaction with wasn't even a song that we were singing. It was something, you know, the firm foundation, I will not be shaken.
Yeah.
Something. I don't know. You know, I'm terrible with music and lyrics or whatever. But, like, it was during a transition of one song to another. They just, like, went through that bridge of that song, like, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And just, I guess because of, you know, what I'm going through in my personal life right now, where I'm at,
Right.
that got, you know, snuck up on me, I guess. It was so like the song before it and the song after it was fine, but, like, it was that, for whatever reason, man, that line that we ran through like 2 or 3 times just snuck through and got me.
Yeah. I will never be shaken. I'm standing on my firm foundation. When all around is sinking sand, on Christ, the solid rock, I'll stand.
Yeah, that one was. I mean, because there are times when I feel shaken.
Yeah.
Lately,
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks, I felt quite shaken.
Yeah, man. I'm in a way better mood right now, but actually earlier today I was like, I almost called you and said maybe we should reschedule because I didn't know if I was going to be able to really do this episode tonight. I've been kind of like just in my head all day
Yeah.
about certain situations and stuff going on, and I don't know, man. Just been feeling heavy.
Anytime that you're down, you don't need to tell me not to come over. That's when you need me the most, bro.
Yeah, I guess I could have just said we just won't record. We just talk about it, but here we are.
Here we are for the whole world to hear.
I came home, made myself pizza, had myself a Fiesta Mango, and I was good to go.
Yeah,
But
Fiesta Mango and pizza like that. I mean, that will turn the worst of days around, really. Today's actually been a good day for me, but I'm on vacation this week. I'm on staycation. I don't have to work, but we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, just swam all day. So I was in the swimming pool, just floating really with the sun on my back.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in a bad mood when you're floating in a pool with the sun beating down on your back.
yeah, just chilling, just relaxing.
Yeah, not having to worry about work or anything. And actually, that's when it's weird enough. I didn't have anything going on, but it was one of those moments when my mind isn't racing with all these different things. You know what I mean? Like I was actually able to relax and not stress about everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, today's been a good day compared to many.
That's good. No, I mean that is. I'm happy to hear that. I'm glad that you're not in the same kind of mental space that I was today.
Who knows
good.
what tomorrow brings, but
Yeah.
as of today, I'm keep on rocking in the free world.
Like you said before, it's probably good in a lot of different ways. It's probably good that one of us is on,
Right.
the other one's off.
We got to be a tag team here. We're a real tag team. See, one of us has to always be able to pick up the slack for the other one.
Yeah. So, yeah. Man, I know we have more to say on praise and worship, though.
I mean, you're
Right.
the worship guy, man.
Well, yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
Why is it important? Let's look at that. Why is it why do we do it? Why do we take the time to do it? Why is it important? And I'm specifically, obviously, from that perspective, I mean, like, when I say take the time to do it, like, it's what we do. That's that's like 50% of church, is praise and worship and then sermons and teachings. So it's like 50% of what we do. So why? That seems important. Is it important? Why is it important?
I think it's, for me, I think one reason that I think that it's important, especially in that corporate
Right.
setting, is because I know myself well enough to know that, like, I have a really hard time getting out of my own way during my week.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, having this dedicated space of time to be intentional, and not that you can't create that in your day to day,
Right.
but it's been a lot harder for me personally to do that,
Right.
to carve out that time to be intentional about it and make time to to do that on my own. But I also think that even aside from that, even if I was better about that, in that corporate setting, I do think that there's something different about. I just think there's something really beautiful about all of us gathering together with. And I mean, well, sometimes not all of us are there. Sometimes a lot of us are gone mentally, But like gathering together as a family, and in one mind, one accord, right? We're there for this purpose. I do think there's something beautiful about that, and I think God's worthy of it, too. And, that kind of goes back to, like, what we were talking about before about, like, does God need it? Well, no, I don't think God needs it. God doesn't have an ego, right?
You'd think, yeah.
God has no ego. God has no need. God doesn't need anything. There's no lack in God's self that needs fulfilling,
Right.
right? So it's not about that. It's for us.
I was just about to come out of my lips. It's kind of funny the way that when you were describing it, it made sense to me in that respect of like, not only does God not need it, but God is unchangeable. Like you're not going to, it's not like you're going to sing him a song and he's going to be like, well, I was going to give you a terrible day today, but since you sung me this song,
Right.
That's not how God works. Like that's not the God I believe in, at least. Like,
Yeah.
So it's not like singing these praise songs or whatever your praise and worship looks like. It's not about changing God. You're not going to change God. It's about changing you, I think, really.
Yeah, it's all for your benefit, and I think that's precisely why I think that's precisely why God set it up in this way. Like I think that's why that like the church exists in the way that it exists now is because everything that God does is self-sacrificing. It's for us,
Right.
right? So even the existence of corporate worship that's for us.
Yeah. I
It's
think so too.
It's for our own benefit.
I mean, it's very similar to prayer. Like I've had the same thought about prayer before, because like, prayer. I don't want to dive too deep because that's not the topic. And like I said, I've had a lot of questions about it. But that's one of the struggles that I've had with prayer. It's like, what am I going to tell God? He already knows everything. And even if I tell him something, like I'm not going to change God. That's not how God works.
Yeah.
It's not like. I mean, what kind of father would that make God if he was like, well, I was going to let you die, but since you prayed for it, like, I guess I'll let you live now. You know what I mean? Like, That seems weird. I don't think that that's how prayer works, but it seems like maybe because God does already know everything, that prayer is as much or more for us than it is even for God. Like, it's, I think it's very similar in a worship setting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's meant to increase your faith. I think it's meant to draw you closer, like again, you could go back to like a father and child analogy. Like this, well, I mean, this more is applicable for like little children, but like, whenever you're a little kid, you're probably not going to tell your dad anything that he doesn't know. Whenever you're a little kid,
Right.
But he still loves to hear your voice.
Oh yeah.
He still loves to hear you talk to him.
Anytime Finn tries to tell me something, I always act surprised at least.
Yeah, see, exactly. Exactly. You love interacting with him. You love that connection, that communion. Even though you're not getting anything out of it other than just enjoying his company.
Right.
You're friends. We are friends of God,
Right.
God wants that communion, that intimate friendship, I mean, there's something, and I don't know that even requires anything on your part, because like, think about the story of Lazarus, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Like Lazarus never says anything, never does anything. In the Gospels, anyway.
Yeah.
Like
literally, the only thing he did was die.
Yes, exactly. But he's the one that Jesus wept over.
Right.
He's the one that clearly is a friend of Jesus's, like a close friend. Like Jesus chose to go and be in the company of these people because they were his friends.
Right.
Lazarus never said anything, never did anything, but yet he was a friend to Jesus, and Jesus wanted to spend time with him, and Jesus wept when he died.
Yeah.
And Jesus brought him back. Like again, the guy never says or does anything.
Even after that.
Yeah, even after
you would think it would
Not
be
even a
everywhere
thanks,
after
man.
that.
Yeah. So like, and I don't want anyone to mishear me. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be communicating with God. I'm just saying that like God desires friendship
Right.
with us.
Well, sometimes, I mean, some friendships are very like back and forth talking. I mean, me and you have that kind of friendship where even if we're not recording, we're all the time talking or texting or, you know what I mean? Like about
Yeah.
stuff like this. Sometimes friends are just like to be in each other's company. We don't even have to talk about something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we don't have to talk about anything. Let's just sit here and enjoy a beverage together and just be in each other's company. You know, like,
Right. Yeah. So I think that's an element to it too, as far as like why it's needful, or, you know, for it. You know, it's, again, I don't think it's a need that God has within God's self, but I think that because like John Piper, who I disagree with almost everything he says, but there's a few things that he said that I really like, and one of them that always stuck with me was God's glory. He says that God is most glorified. God is most glorified. God receives the most amount of glory possible, in other words, when we are most satisfied in him. So what brings God glory is, it's like, even whenever I just say that to say, like, as far as like there's no ego in God, there's no need in God, even God's own glory isn't brought about by some sort of selfish need within God's self.
right.
It's always for the other. It's for us. It's for our satisfaction in him.
That's the worldly view
Yeah.
of glory, right? Like
Right.
a militaristic glory of like conquering others and power and might and
Yes, absolutely. So even in saying that, like, you know, we gather together in a corporate setting to praise and worship and to give honor and glory to God. Well, what brings honor and glory to God is our satisfaction in the fact that he is good. That fresh revelation, again, of over and over again, constantly falling down in worship of how good, fresh revelation after fresh revelation of God's goodness, his love, his mercy, and compassion, his goodness, his holiness, his justice, his glory, all those things.
right.
You know, everything that God is. Just a constant widening and deepening view and conception of it. Like, that's for our benefit. God is who God is all the time, and God knows who God is. You know, he's not...
Right.
That's not for his sake, it's for ours. So, yeah, man.
I was trying to look up the word because I'd looked up that verse earlier. Those who worship God must worship him in spirit and truth. Because I wanted to look up what the word that was translated as worship actually, you know, like
Yeah.
it didn't really lead to anything profound. I couldn't even pronounce the word in Greek, but it just says to do reverence to go down on the knees in worship, to kiss the ground when prostrating, before a superior, ready to fall down and prostrate oneself to adore on one's knees. So
It's not the same word as
this is proskuneo.
oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't do any research on that beforehand, but just when you'd mentioned it earlier, I looked it up to see if there was anything in there that would give us something else to talk about with like worship. What does that word mean in the Greek? But it means to worship.
Right. Is it the same word that's in Romans 12 that I read earlier? I wonder.
I don't know.
I'm trying to look it up right now.
Romans 12.
Spiritual service of worship. That is the word.
What verse is that in?
This is actually a different word. It's in verse 1 or 2.
Oh yeah. So which one? So this version. Well, this is King James, I guess. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present yourself a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, your reasonable service. So which one is worship?
The word that's translated as service in the KJV
Oh, okay. Service.
is translated as worship.
Latria?
Yeah.
Service rendered to God, perhaps simply to worship. Okay. But it is a different word.
Yeah.
But this seems to be the kind of the difference in what we were talking about. So this word seems more of what you were talking about earlier, being not just an act, but like the overall of like the service of God, basically, because the word service is here, service rendered to God. So it's like when you reflect that agape love, when you act that agape love into action, that is your latrio, whatever the word is there.
Right.
But the other word is more of like falling down on your knees and worship. It's like an actual, like
Yeah.
the worship, the practice of worship, like a worship service, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Right. So yeah. So worship encompasses all of that.
yeah.
You know, and that's why I was saying earlier. I think it encompasses a lot more than just simply going to church and raising your hands to a song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the raising of hands thing at all.
Yeah. Well, it's always been weird to me because people have always done it.
Mm-hmm.
Even, like I said, when I was in the Baptist church, that we had the one lady that did it. She only came for a short amount of time, and that was weird. But ever since I've been going to, charismatic churches now for as long as I was a Baptist. 20 years now. And raising hands is just a thing, but I've never understood it. Like, if I've never felt compelled on my own to do it. I've done it before because, when everybody raise your hands or whatever, like I will just at times, but it's not something that's ever, like, I've never just been standing there being like, I need to raise my hands. You know what I mean? And I never really understood why people do that, but I'm not judging it. Like, to each their own, do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. One reason because I do it some. For me, what it sort of signifies, it's a lot of the stuff that we do. I think it's just symbolic, right? It's just like an external sort of like demonstration of something happening internally.
Which I think makes sense when you look at it from a perspective of, like you said, it's more for you. It's not for God, right? Because I've always, in my mind, like where my mind automatically goes with stuff like that is like, I don't need to demonstrate anything to God. Like,
right, yeah.
God already knows. Like, literally every time I try to pray, that's what it comes back to. Like, I'll say something, and I'm like, well, you already know that. And then I go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's meant to help build you up. It's meant to help, increase your faith. I think it's meant to help. A lot of times I think it's meant to. I think it's just good for your It brings joy.
Right.
A lot of times, I think it.
Which let me go ahead and throw this out there. I don't think it's a bad thing to do things when you don't feel like doing them. And what I mean by that is there's been times that I have done things in worship service simply for the reason that I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a good thing to do what you don't want to do. I can particularly remember one night, I think it was a Sunday night. I think it was, where they had said, come up front, everybody come up front and blah, blah, blah. And something within me was like, no, I don't want to go up front. I don't need to go. Because the thing for me is always it seems ridiculous, right? Like, God is just as much in the back of the church as he is the front of the church. It doesn't matter where I stand. Like, people get really caught up on you got to be up front during church. And it's like, why? It's not like God is on the platform, you're not getting physically closer to him. It doesn't matter.
Right.
However, whenever they said everybody come up front, that's what came up within me was like, I don't want to do that. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I can worship just as well back. But it was that automatic resistance to doing it that I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it just because I don't want to do it, because I need to get out of my comfort zone. And because so I think sometimes doing stuff, even though you don't want to, is the right course of action.
Yeah. That made me think of something that. Let me preface this by saying that this will have obvious limitations, but, so Brother Steve preached last Sunday night. He was talking a little bit about, because you were saying like basically getting in your head and like saying like, well, no, like I'm gonna, because I have this in me that doesn't want to do it, I'm gonna do it. Like I think that is part of maybe how the enemy works. I think that the enemy kind of wants to isolate and make you feel like you're weird or like you're different or like you're going to be judged or that there's, or even that like,
It's a pretty common tactic against me, I can tell you that.
yeah. So like, but I think that is part of, how the satanic, how that works. It's tries to get you distracted, right? Like distracted by your own thoughts, by your own doubts, by your own whatever it is, and then that keeps you from moving, in ways that maybe you were supposed to.
Yeah.
Like I noticed that in myself a lot of times. I'm not saying that that's the case for you. I'm just saying that's something that I've noticed for myself, and that's what I thought of whenever you were saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it probably does factor in. I don't know. I think for me, a lot of times it really just comes. I've talked in every episode just about how strongly logic plays into things for me, and so like, there's an immediate like, like the coming up front thing. It's always, or even like everybody come up front and lay hands on somebody. We're gonna pray for them. Like in my mind, automatically goes to the logic of like, what, like. I can pray just as well where I'm at. Like it doesn't matter. It's not like my prayers are more strong or more effective if I, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
And maybe that's the enemy. I don't know, but it tracks along with like just logically things have to make sense for me. I have a really hard time doing things that don't make any logical sense. Like it's the immediate, like everybody needs to come up front during worship. Like, well, why? Like God is everywhere. He's just as much here as he is there. Like,
yeah,
everybody come up front to pray for somebody. Well, I can pray here. Like I literally don't even need to be in the same country and I can pray for somebody. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, to me, it's again, it's one of those things where like have to, no. But I do think there's logical reasons to do it. And we've talked about some of this before.
Yeah.
Obviously off air, but like.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that there's not a logical reason. I'm just saying that's where my mind always goes to.
Right. Well, like practically speaking, in those two examples of like laying hands on someone to pray or just simply going up front for worship or praise or whatever, for myself, I find it harder to not be distracted in the back.
Yeah.
Like, cause like my whole point, my whole thing when I'm there and when I'm trying to praise and worship is trying to get out of my head, trying to get to not focus on me right now and to focus on God.
Yeah.
Which benefits me, but it's not I'm not doing it. The whole point is to not focus on me for a little bit.
Right. See, it's funny that you say that because it's literally the opposite for me. Because if I do go up front, it's so unusual and so weird that I only end up thinking about how awkward I feel, how everybody's thinking about me, how like it becomes all about me at that point. You know what I mean? Like it's almost the complete opposite in that regard. Like if I'm standing in the back behind everybody else, nobody's looking at me. Nobody's worried about me. Like I'm able to do my own thing. But if I go up front, like everybody sees me. So I'm constantly thinking about what am I doing? How, like, what's everybody thinking? You know what I mean? Like it
sounds like you're just in your head regardless.
All the time. I felt like I made that pretty clear. Yes.
'Cause like, It's not that I don't ever get in my head in those ways that you're talking about when I go up front also.
Yeah.
Especially like sometimes I go up front, I'm the only one up there. Like it feels a little awkward being the only one up there.
Yeah.
So like there is like an awkwardness that I feel sometimes up there too. But I do find it easier to get to, in the back, there's people are chit-chatting, there's conversation, there's kids running around, there's kids crying and
right, for sure,
wrestling and like all kinds of stuff going on that is a distraction, and so in a lot of ways going up front does serve that sort of more practical purpose for me of like literally sort of like eliminating as much distraction as I can so that I can try to get out of my own way, so that I can not focus on me for a little bit, but focus on God.
Yeah, but there's also so much going on up there. Like at times, there's a lot going on up there. Sometimes even more so up there than there is in the back.
Most of the time, I have my eyes closed, though.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Like,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and that it makes logical sense. But also, I think there's a little bit to it that's still just like, this is just what you're used to. Like, you know, like.
Well, I wouldn't deny that that's a factor for sure. Like we already said, like that.
Right.
You know, both of our backgrounds play into this for sure.
Right.
You know, so. But yeah, the laying on of hands thing, like, to me, that's more of, like we were talking about before, like your reasonable worship, like self-sacrifice. Like,
Right.
this is not that it necessarily requires a lot out of me, but like I'm still choosing to stand in solidarity with this person in need.
Right.
You know, like whatever your need is, I'm here with you. I'm standing with you, like actually next to you, not in the back, but
Right.
like literally standing next to you.
Right.
And I'm here to let you know that I'm standing here with you, and I'm whatever is coming against you, I'm against it too.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's what I think really with the, I mean, again, when I say these things, I'm not poo-pooing on them. I don't have
Yeah,
a problem with
right.
laying hands on people. Like I've done it and will do it again. Like it's fine. Just talking about some of the struggles that I have with it. But
Yeah.
I mean, that is, I really don't think it has anything to do with us per se. I just, for me, when it comes to praying for people and people's healing and things like that, the only way that makes sense to me is that it matters what people think they need. Just like the lady had needed to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. She touched the hem of his garment, was healed. There's no other record. Like, Jesus healed however many people in the Gospels, and there's only one instance where they had to touch the hem of his garment. But that's what she thought she needed, and so that's what it took. And so I think there's a lot to that. Like, if somebody thinks they need to be immersed in the water to be healed, then I'm all for them getting in the water and being immersed, because I think there's something to just getting what you think you need. So if from that regard, if somebody comes up front and it's like, hey, I need prayer, what they're saying is they think what they need is people to come and lay their hands on them. So I think that's beneficial. I don't know if there's any like deep, anything deeper spiritually than that. I'm sure that there is, but for me, it's just simply whatever you think you need is probably what you need. Like, you know, there are scientific studies that show like whatever helps you to think positively has good benefits. Like, even if it's a placebo effect, just thinking positive thoughts. So if it's going to make you feel better to have everybody in the church come up there and lay hands on you, that's what you need. So from that respect, like, I have no problem with it.
Right. And I'm not saying the things that I'm saying to try to like rebut you. I'm just giving my 2 cents on them.
Well, you can't rebut me.
Another thought that I have sort of on that, the whole laying out of hands thing, is like, you know, like you said earlier, like we have, like, the Spirit of God dwells within us,
Right?
is in us, and you know, and that means certain things, like you know, like Jesus, whenever he gave the disciples power, like through the Spirit and in His name, to, you know, cast out demons and heal the sick and to tread on serpents and all this stuff.
Nope, I've already told you to draw the line at the serpents.
Serpents. But you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I think that, you know, I think that as part of this too, it's like we have power through.
There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. That one's from my old Baptist days.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, there's I'm sure you have thoughts on that may be different, but.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that, to be honest with you, because God does reside in me, but I also believe that God resides in all of creation. So, like, that gets trippy as far as, you know what I'm saying? Like, trying to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the only place where my mind goes with that, is like, yeah, makes sense, but also it gets trippy because, you know, it's true, God's in me, but He's also in everybody else and all things. And I believe personally that God is in all things, like all of creation.
Right. So I guess what I mean by that is, like, I think that, like, all of us gathering together Like, what's that one? Where's the song we sing that says something like, with all the faith in the room?
If there's one thing I'm worse at than knowing where to find it in the Bible, it's what does the song say?
It says, can you imagine, with all the faith in the room, what the Lord can do?
What the Lord can do.
Yeah.
What the Lord can do.
Exactly. So, like, I think
If I keep singing songs on this, it's not going to be long, and I'm probably going to be a part of the worship team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to that. I think that there is something to. I don't claim to understand it at all, but I think that there is something to, like, you know, Christ in me, Christ in you, Christ in this person, Christ in that person, Christ in this person. We're gathering together as one and standing together with this person, and Christ is in them too. Always working for their good. And we're just joining in that, in solidarity with them. You know, endued with power by the Holy Spirit to participate in God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven. And his kingdom coming here and now, you know. And it's within us. Right?
And without.
And without.
Within and without. As above, so below.
But, yeah. So, I don't know. Those are just kind of some of my thoughts on the whole
We've went down so many rabbit holes in this
laying on of hands.
in this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting into, like, our prayer episode.
Really, yeah.
That,
There's so much more that you could say about prayer, though.
yeah.
I think, personally, at least. I have so many questions about prayer.
Yeah. If we were going to do a prayer episode, I need to read that George MacDonald quote.
I don't think
it's pretty good.
I mean, there's a lot to say about worship and prayer, but for me, it was more about just talking through my questions and struggles and experiences. And, you know, I think it's good for, maybe it's good. Maybe people are going to hate it. I don't know. But maybe I think sometimes it's good to just be vulnerable and say, look, man, I don't have all the answers. This is something I struggle with. And, like, I'm open and honest about it. And I hope I don't get dragged through the mud for it, but we'll see.
Well, you never know.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not going to poo-poo on it. Like, I don't have any issues with it. That's one of the places where I've come in my personal life is like, I just want to be somewhere where everybody can just do what feels right to them. Like, I don't want...
Right.
That's the thing with, like, what I said, where I still feel sort of the pressure. That's part of my struggles during the worship services. It still feels like like there's an expectation of me, like I'm pressured to do something that I don't feel like I need to do or want to do. But the thing is, I acknowledge that that's within me. There's nothing about anybody else or the church that we attend that makes me feel that way. It's just who I am and my own insecurities and my past experiences that make me feel that way. So I want to be clear about that. Like, there's nothing that the people in the church are doing that makes me feel that way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe you just need to tell the devil to take a hike.
Get behind me, Satan.
Get out of here, devil.
Get out of my head.
My, Sweet William, my papaw, Case, I always had that devil stick. Maybe you need to get you a devil stick.
Somebody probably does need to smack some sense into me. A devil stick would probably do the trick.
Well, I was thinking more of an offensive weapon, so he would get that enemy at your way.
Probably, because if you try to hit me with a stick, I'm going to hit you in the face.
Yeah. Oh, Sweet William, they called him.
Sweet William. That's my name, William.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever called me Sweet William, though.
No one's ever called you Bill either.
No, that's because that's my dad's name.
Yeah. Bill.
Actually, people have tried to call me Bill in the past. They didn't know that was my dad. But that's the joys of having the same name as your dad and the same name as your granddad and the same name as your great-granddad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. What else you got for us on the praise and worship front? Anything? Are we done?
I think I've said my piece on it, really. I mean, I'm sure that there's more. I'm sure there's more that could be said.
How long have we been going?
Hour 40.
No way.
Yeah, man.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, I mean we're time wise we're good to shut her down if you're done.
It just really did not feel like we'd been recording that long. I thought we were just like an hour.
Yeah, well, we were a couple 1-2 silly geese there at the beginning. We probably didn't get going until 30 minutes
Yeah.
in anyway.
So for the listeners that don't know, I do go back and listen to all of our episodes once they're uploaded. Just number one, because we try to stay ahead. So it's been a while since we recorded them. And two, like it is different when you listen back than being in the moment, and like you catch things that you wish you would have said, or things like it's almost like a film study in football. Really, like you watch football, like the film of the previous game, to like assess what you did, when you did it, why you did it, how could you improve, and like I do that kind of with our episodes. Just listen back to it, and I went on such a tangent there that I even forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I was talking about us being silly at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. And that was one of the things that I told Sean the other day that I always get a kick out of when we're not talking about the topic, because usually the things that we talked about when we're talking the topic, I remember pretty well. Like I know what we were talking about, but I forget when we're just freestyling it, talking about random things. I forget what we had said. So when I listen back to it, it's like hearing it again for the first time, and it cracks me up. That's my favorite part of our episodes.
Well, maybe we just do that sometime. Just come in here and just talk, just be silly.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be very hard for us to not end up talking some sort of theological concepts, just because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
But we could give it a shot. Maybe that's the theme of the episode. We try to avoid talking about theology for an hour and a half.
Yikes. That's going to be a fail.
Probably
Inevitably, that will be a fail.
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else for the praise and worship, man. I mean, it is something. So I guess that is one thing. Like if you attend church with me and see me standing in the back during the worship service, now you have a little bit of insight as to what's going on in my brain. You know that there's about 10 million different thoughts happening at the same time. I'm having this war within. I'm wrestling. So, yeah, this gives you a little insight. When you look back there and I look like a lost puppy, you know why.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the only things I would kind of say to wrap it up is just like, I enjoy having that time. Like I really value having that space dedicated for that. And like if you're someone who does struggle with that, then you're welcome at Bethel.
Yes.
If you don't have somewhere where you feel like you have that freedom to come and set aside, to get out of your own way, to set aside your doubts, your whatever you're dealing with at the moment, and just not focus on you for a little bit. If you want somewhere
Right.
where you're free to do that, and free to worship, in the way that you see fit. Bethel is a good place for that. And, I really appreciate that. I appreciate that we have that space. I'm grateful for that. Yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say, other than God is good, man. So good. Too good to not praise.
I'd describe him to you, but he's indescribable.